Hello, I'm Colin Gortry and I'd like to welcome you to this webinar, Recovering Your Reputation. Now, I don't know quite why you're here and what attracted you to come to this particular session, but the chances are quite high that there is something going on in your world around you, particularly in the recent past, that is giving you cause for concern. Some reasons why maybe you've made some mistakes, or maybe you feel you've got off to a bad start, or maybe things have gone completely pear-shaped. Whatever it is, what I want you to do is to use this as a real good opportunity to turn things around, to actually take stock of what's going on at the moment and invigorate yourself to be able to move forward. Just to give you a little bit of indications to where I'm coming from, because I know a lot of people on today's session haven't come across me before, but basically I've been there and done it. I have been in the corporate world. I have been in some very difficult situations in international business, in international mergers and acquisitions, mainly in large insurance companies, financial services companies, and I've been out there and I've got the results in some very difficult situations. And it fascinated me to understand, well, why was that? What was it that I was doing and had learnt to be able to do that was cause for that success? Why was I able to do what I was able to do, get in some big results and be able to move things forward? So I started to get really curious and look quite deeply at the subject of influence, at the politics that were going on around the organisation. And to cut a long story short, I have worked out over the years, and I've been doing this nearly 15 years now, what it was that I was doing that was helping, what it was that I was doing that wasn't helping, and also looking at how we can codify that so that it can be of maximum benefit to other people of integrity in many different types of organisation and work. So my journey so far has been to, get the real scars and the real stripes in the corporate world, but also I've done a lot of reading, a lot of research, written 5 books, and you may well have seen some of my articles or maybe even some of the videos, or perhaps you've even been on one of the webinars. But fundamentally, I'm about helping people with integrity to take positive action to move in the direction that they want, to become more influential and get, I suppose, the success they deserve, get the attention that they deserve, and get the results. So that's what I'm here to do. And what I've noticed over the years is that there is quite a lot about the impression people create around them that has a material impact on the results that they get, the way people perceive them, which is where this whole idea of reputations is coming from. So what I want to do over the next sort of hour or so is talk to you about some of the key questions, and I want you to engage with this as much as possible. But the process, and what I'm trying to do, I guess, is really give you the opportunity to think it through a little bit and to work out what you can do to recover your reputation, if that's what you're here to do. So the structure of the session, I've got my colleague David Wilson on the call. He's on the other end of the question box, so get into there, introduce yourself to David and say hello, and pitch your questions over to him as and when we go through, or as we go through the session. But the first thing I'm going to look at is give you some ideas on how you can diagnose what the problem actually is, because quite often there's a lot of fantasy, a lot of fiction, and you've got to really search for the facts. So I'm going to give you some tips and ideas on how you can do that. It's really important to try to establish as well what your real actual reputation is. What are people really thinking of you? And there's some ways to simplify that, some ways to actually accumulate that insight and that feedback that will help you to get a firm fix on where you are right now, because then you can actually say, well, does it matter? And we're going to cover sort of things like, well, who are the people that you really need to have a good reputation with? Who are the people you've got to impress? And it may be, and maybe you'll find this as we go through, that you're focusing on the wrong people, or not the people that would make the biggest difference for you. So we'll talk a little bit about, does it matter? And also, what is it you really want here? So, okay, you're here perhaps with a reputation you're not best pleased with and you'd like to change, but where do you want to go? And it's really important that you get a firm fix on that. So I'm going to give you some ideas. And then that's hopefully about the halfway point, and then we'll get into some questions. So, any question you fire through to David will come on at the halfway point and start to ask them of me, and we can get into a bit of a discussion. But in the second half, I want to look at, so assuming you want to recover a reputation, if you want to build a reputation, What is it about the relationships that can help you that you need to be aware of? The relationships with the key stakeholders that you want to make a good impression with. And it's really important because what you do and the approach you take with those people is going to vary depending on the type of relationship that you've got. So I'll talk a little bit about that. I'm also going to outline some of your key strategic options because I'm guessing that do nothing is not an option for you because that's why you're here. And so I want to cover the things where you can actually take some action, either with individual people you need to re-impress, for want of a better word, or with taking more strategic sort of look at where you want to go and how you're going to get there, what are the key milestones. Also going to share with you some key ideas about taking action, getting on with it and getting moving, and things that, and this is based on what I notice in a lot of the coaching clients that I work with, but also on the workshops that I run in large companies. And so these are almost like my top tips for getting off to a good start in rebuilding your reputation, recovering your reputation. And finally, I'm going to finish on really some quite exciting news about the course that we launched a little while ago, Building a Powerful Reputation. It's not going to be a hard sell. I'm just going to tell you this is what it is and where we are with it and what it's doing for people. But in the meantime, what I want to do is to add as much value as I can in the next hour as we help you to work out how to recover your reputation. So to begin with, what is the problem? And it's really important that you get a firm fix on this, because if you don't, it's going to be extremely difficult to work out the right action that you can take. It may sound a little bit obvious, but it is really a very important point to sort of really ground. And that's partly because a lot of people fantasize about what people are really thinking about them, what is actually going on, and they exaggerate. That's partly human nature. We're doing this all of the time. And what you've got to do is to find a way of stripping that fantasy away, stripping the fiction out of it, stripping almost like the political spin that might be on some of the feedback that you're getting at the moment, to get to the facts. What is actually going on? What are people actually thinking about you, saying about you? What feedback are you actually getting? Because until you've got that, knowing what to do about it is, you don't want to be working on a fictitious situation and trying to recover something that doesn't need to be recovered, trying to recover the wrong thing. So this is why you've got to drive toward, and some of the ways and means of getting there means you've got to build relationships. You've got to sometimes, I think, face up to some quite difficult conversations, but I'll talk a little bit more about that in the second half. It's also really important to recognize the emotional side to this, because people who've got a bad or made a bad impression or are troubled about their reputation, it hits hard on the emotions. It's almost like a personal insult because it's so unfair, and it's, you're doing your best to help people to move forward, move into different territories, and yet they're getting the wrong end of the stick. They're getting the wrong impression about what you're really all about. And well, they should be showing more of an interest, and they should be. No, it doesn't work like that, and that's not a way of. It's not going to help you. So accept that you're going to have an emotional reaction to this. Acknowledge it, but then do whatever you can to put it to one side, to put it to the side, so that you can look at it and look at the situation in a more analytical way, a more clinical way, so that you can work out what's to do. You can't recover a reputation with your emotions fully engaged in the thinking process. You might need to engage your emotions when you go out to do it, take the actions, but when you're working out what to do, cool, calm, collected sort of consideration is what you really need. But recognise that this is something that will be striking at your heart. And this is another thing that I've noticed a lot of, is about people taking these things very personally. Quite often, and I would even argue in most cases, it's not so much about you, but what your stakeholders didn't get. Their frustration about perhaps not being able to get the result that they were shooting for, and it just happens to be that you were the one in the firing line. You were the one to potentially get the sharp end of their frustrations and their anger, but it might not be about you at all. It might be circumstances, it might be other things, and they're venting, or maybe even using you as a political football or a political pawn to take the flak, or what do they call be a fall guy for it. So it may be nothing about you. So that's a really, just recognise that, and as you search for the facts, you'll start to see a little bit more of that hopefully come through. And personally, I believe that if you can step to one side for a little while, and I'll tell you how to do that in a moment. If you can step to one side, you will have a lot more clarity and accuracy in the way that you're thinking about these things. So let's talk about a couple of actions that you can take on this particular element to get a little bit deeper into what's really going on. And the first thing is, and this might seem a bit strange, but write your story. I mean, we're doing another course on mastering the politics elsewhere, and we're getting into a lot of this whole thing about narration. And narration and writing or telling a story is a really important way of coming to terms with what's going on, getting more of a fix on reality, and starting to make more sense of it. Without the discipline of having to write a story, you're starting to miss some nuances and some realities that, you know, the random thoughts that you might have in between everything else that you're doing, because I know you're really busy. So what I would suggest you do is write a story, not War and Peace, but maybe a couple of pages to describe your problem. The next thing I want you to do is then rewrite your story as a third person. So the first story will be first person. So this is happening to me. This is what's going on. They're doing this. They're saying this. I'm saying that. And this is what's going on. The whole idea about rewriting your story is to almost detach yourself and become an independent observer of the situation, and then write another story. So you're talking on behalf of you, as if you were almost as if you were somebody else. And that is taking a different perspective. And when we do that, what quite often happens is people see things in a completely different light. They start to settle down because that's already helping you to remove some of the emotional interference that is going on. And the third thing that I would suggest here before I move on is get an editor. And by that what I mean is check out your stories with somebody else, maybe a trusted friend or a trusted colleague, because they have got yet another perspective on what's going on. They are detached, I mean, depending on who it is, but they are automatically a further detached from it than you are. So they may be able to sort of give you a little bit more a sense check and more ground you a little bit more in what's really going on. Because if you want to recover something, you really need to know what you've got to deal with. So those are the three suggestions there. The next thing to think about is, well, what is your reputation? So if you've been doing some analysis of the problem, if you've been finding the facts and looking at it, what reputation is all about is the estimation in which a person or thing is held, especially by a community or the public generally. And reputation is generally thought of, and most of the academic work is done on companies and entities. What is their reputation? But it applies equally to you as an individual. So expanding this and translating this into what's going on for you as an individual is a really important thing. But I wonder, if you think about who your community is, who is it that you are needing to make an impression with? Who is it that you are making an impression with that you feel the need to recover from? And that's an important part of using this definition. And then you need to sort of get into, so what is it they are actually thinking? So let's just go through a couple of these here, and then I'll give you some more actions that you can take. The first thing is that, is this unfair? And the problem is, I think a lot of people don't think too much about their reputation until it's too late, and they're in a position where they might be interested in a webinar like this, looking at how they can recover it. But fundamentally, I believe most people are there to do a good job. They put their heart and soul into it. They really drive hard at doing the nuts and bolts of their work without paying enough regard for the reactions that other people are going to give, basically, to the way they're transmitting it, the way they're presenting their work. And the problem is that other people are other people, and they are going to think their own thoughts, irrespective of what you do. So it could well be that you may be feeling at the moment that the way people are reacting to you, the way or maybe the feedback that you're getting from others is totally unjustified, totally unfair. Tough. That's my message there, because if that is the way they're thinking, that is the way they're thinking, and that is a reality that you are going to have to take on board and accept at some stage. So I think it's really important to take a deep breath and actually think, okay, well, okay, appreciate their saying that. Personally, I think they've got it wrong, and it's not a correct impression, but that is the impression they're telling me they've got. Now, what am I going to do about it? And then you can start to make some decisions. And all the time, we're trying to keep some of the emotional interference out of the way, so that you can get busy and get on with things. And I think that's the most important. Well, you're not going to recover a reputation unless you take action. And so the quicker you can get to taking some of this recovery action, the better you will fare. The other thing about this reputation, the definition of reputation, is who is it that you want to impress? And I think that's a really important thing, because automatically we would think, well, we want to be all things to all people. We want to make a good impression with all of these people. But do you really need to do that? And I think it's important, because quite often, and certainly in my experience in the field, actually doing the work, but also working, workshops and coaching people, is that quite often the people that are giving the feedback are not the ones that really matter. They're the loudest. They're the people who've got an axe to grind, or maybe are acting in a political way to have a go at you, or to neutralise some of the damage you can do to them in the workplace. So, you've got to be very careful. But if you get very clear about the critical people that you want to have a good impression of you, you will be able to take more efficient action. And I think that's a really important point. But at the end of the day, what you're looking to do is to change the way they think. So you've got to be clear, and we started this in the previous step, you've got to be quite clear about what it is they're actually thinking, and how you find that out is going to be an interesting one, because at some stage you've got to go and talk to people, you've got to actually find them. But don't do that too quickly until I've shared with you what I've got under the relationship heading a little bit further on. But you have got to get inside their head to find out what they are thinking, and then make some decisions about what you want them to think, and then some of the actions will start to become a little bit obvious then to you, and hopefully very, very simple. So a couple of things here to really focus on is write down who they are. Make a list of the key people, or the key sub-communities, if you want, that you want to have a good reputation with, and prioritise the powerful ones. In most of the courses that we do, we're looking at what is power and how does power work, because it has such a marked impact on people's experiences in the workplace. And I think it's really important that you focus in on the powerful people who can make or break you. Depending on where it is you want to go, you can then start to tune your activities, tune your rebuilding work to the right audience that will help you to take this step forward and actually potentially capitalize on the situation that you've got in front of you right now. And the third one is 3 words only. And what I mean by that, I've done a lot of work and helped a lot of people with this. I've got a very simple way of doing all of this personal branding, where you don't have to do complicated, difficult wordsmithing and coming up with a strapline. You just have to think of 3 words. And my suggestion to you right now is to think of the 3 words that you believe are in the minds of the audience you want to impress, the people who in a way you've got a poor reputation with, or you've made a bad impression. So try to come up with 3 words that they might be thinking. So if I went to talk to them and I said, hey, what about Joe then? What do you make of Joe? What 3 words might they choose to say to me? Because that is then almost like epitomizing what their impression of you is. And if you look at where you are, I then want you to look at where you want to go. And I'll say more about this in a moment, but thinking about it in a positive way is almost like, what do you want to transplant? I want to move from that to that, these 3 to those 3. And I'll talk more about that a little bit later. But what that does, just by focusing on 3 words, it simplifies it further. It allows you to focus your attention where you can have the biggest impact, and it will help you to make quicker progress. So 3 words might take you half an hour to come up with in terms of the aspirational side, and then you can just get on with it. So does it matter? And here I think what is important is that you are very clear about, so if you want to recover your reputation, to what end? What are you trying to do? And I think it's really important that you have your goals in mind, what it is you're ambitious to achieve, where is it you're going, what is your trajectory, because this will then help you to look at where you need to focus your attention on the rebuild, on the conversion or the transformation or the transplantation, as I called it earlier earlier on in those people's minds. So think about or do a review. So get clear on, okay, what is it you're trying to achieve? Because then you can say, well, does that impression that I've found out people have got of me really make any difference, or maybe even might help? We may not perhaps initially like it, but if it suits our longer term goals, then brilliant. I mean, we don't need to worry too much about that. We can then go and focus on something else. Part of the risks and reward idea is that, where you've got key people, powerful people in your surroundings, or maybe your career stakeholders, or within your arena, you've got to think about almost each and every individual. To what extent does a good impression with them help towards my goals, towards my plans, towards what I'm trying to do? What risk do I run with that person holding a bad impression of me? And then it comes to well, does it really matter, and who really matters? And it might not, because what you've got to do is, you haven't got time to win over everybody, but you have got to win over the most important people. So the actions that I'm going to suggest here is that you do a review before you do too much on recovering your reputation or trying to turn it around or move forward. Review your career goals, your plans, what it is you're trying to do, your purpose. Why are you there? What are you trying to achieve? And then answer the question, well, who can help or hinder you the most? Looking at perhaps your environment, the immediate people around you, who are the ones who are going to be able to really drive you forward or really hold you back? And then you can start to make a much clearer decision about where you need to go. And in fact, if you need to do some of this action. But I want you to take a very clear decision, and a decision that, yes, I am going to do something about it. I am going to create move from that reputation to this reputation. Because if you just keep ruminating about it, where will the action come from? Where will the real progress be made? You'll probably be thinking about it again in 6 months' time when you get your next review or your next bit of 360 feedback or something like that. And I think if it does matter to you that you have a really good reputation with the people that matter, get on with it. Don't hang about. Take some positive action to move it forward. So finally, in the final section, before we go to some questions, and please do put your questions through to David. Give him a hard time, make him have to struggle to get through all of the different questions, but please keep them coming in. If there's something in your mind that you want to know more about, want me to address more, please do pop a question into the box so that David can pick it up. So on this part, what do you want? And I think it's really important that you start to define your reputation in a lot more detail. I mean, when we're doing the course, people who are going through the Building a Powerful Reputation course go into a lot more detail about what their key capabilities are, what their skills are, what unique features have they got. And I think that's a really important thing, because if you want to build a really good reputation, you better know what you want, what it is you want to convey, and how you are going to deliver it. Because it's really important that it's not just words, that you've got some substance and credibility that you can pack behind it. And maybe you've made mistakes in the past, maybe there are failures in your relationship with people where you've let them down, done something wrong, really messed up in some way. Well, you've got to shore that up. You've got to find ways of shoring it up if it matters, and if it is what you want to build your reputation on. Because as we'll see later, there are some other options that you might not necessarily need to worry too much about it. We also spend a lot of time looking at the 3 words to do this and to get the power out of it, because as we were saying earlier on, if you can come up with 3 words that people are thinking about you now, and you may need to take a deep breath to sort of be honest with at least yourself what they might be thinking, then think about 3 words that you really want to be there. And that can have a magical effect. And you may have seen my work on personal branding before, and if not, go and Google it. Just Google personal brand Gautry, and you'll find lots of articles about this. But the point about the 3 words is that it's 3 words that will really help you to move where you want to get. When I first came up with the idea, my 3 words, or more or less 3 words, was tenacious, hard-hitting crisis manager. In the corporate world, in mergers and acquisitions and corporate strategy, strategy. That's what I chose to be because I felt it would give me a differential advantage over my competitors in a very, very crowded workspace. It didn't necessarily make me Mr. Popular, but it was what I wanted to build a reputation for so that I could get the job done and achieve my career ambitions and where I wanted to go. That's just one example, but that really fired me up. And so partly by getting this clarity, you can get more confidence and get more oomph into putting it out there, making an impression and making the right sort of impression, the one that will get you where you want to get. And the final thought for you here on what do you want is why? Because if you haven't got a strong enough why, you're not going to put the effort into recovering your reputation and building a great reputation, because particularly recovery takes some courage. It takes some hard conversations. You might have to have embarrassing conversations with people. You might have to take quite a few knocks on the way through to gaining the clarity and building the relationships. So the more reasons you can think of why you would benefit from all of this work, the more likely you will be to follow through and to take the action that needs to be taken. And if you're in a recovery position, you have got to take some action. I mean, yes, of course, you could move to another company and try to start again, but what's happening at the moment in the world is fascinating, and the way it's closing down, it's getting smaller, and you can't avoid your history anything like as much as you used to be able to. So to recover and move on is better than just ignoring and moving on, because it may come back to bite you later. So 3 actions to suggest for you here, and then I'll ask David to come in with the questions, is firstly, write it down. So whatever your definition, whatever level of detail you get to, write it down. And I think it's really important that you write it down because it helps to clarify it in your own mind. It helps to make it more tangible what it is you're shooting for. Like with all goals, if you get it written down and you can do it really succinctly, then you're going to be in a much stronger position and automatically more likely to achieve the objective that you want to achieve. The why is to actually also write down the benefits that you will receive when you achieve that. So don't just write down your goal, but write down the why you're doing this, why you are prepared to go above and beyond to recover your reputation, strive towards making the right sort of impression with your key stakeholders. Because of the effort that is going to be required, you need to keep coming back for it. And the final thing here is be careful what you wish for. Because particularly with the 3 words, I've seen it many times before that people have come up with 3 words and then realised when they've been achieved that wasn't quite as, the world isn't quite like it they thought it was going to be. And let me just give you a quick example. Going back to my example, tenacious, hard-hitting crisis manager, what I had to be clear about is that I wasn't going to have many friends. With the absolute focus on those 3 attributes, those 3 characteristics, I was becoming very assertive. I was prepared to upset people. I was prepared to be unpopular. And I was comfortable with that. But had I not been comfortable, then I could have been in a very difficult position personally, emotionally, and maybe even career-wise. So in a way, what I would suggest is once you've written down, if you like, your first draft of what you want and why you want it, step into the future and imagine you having achieved it, and take a look at the world and think, is this okay? Is this something that I really do want? Is it going to be congruent with my family and personal life as well? And that's another important aspect. So do a little bit of careful soul searching, make sure that it's right for you, because once you start to codify it, once you start to write it down, it's going to start happening. Okay, so I'm going to pause for a little bit of breath and invite David in to compare some of your questions.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome everyone. Thank you for your great inputs and indeed some challenging questions, Colin. I think what you said might address some of these and certainly take you guys somewhere towards pulling together a strategy. Let me throw these in, Colin, and then you can, let me just scroll back here.
It sounds like there's a lot of questions there then.
There is a lot of questions, yes, indeed.
Good.
First, two related questions, one from Ugor and also Paley. Ugor says he's here to understand how to recover his reputation, which has taken a battering with some key stakeholders. So it's very much on point here. And Paley, in a more developmental sense, is interested in building influence in the workplace, especially in circumstances that have had reputational damage. So battering from stakeholders and a bit of reputational damage. Colin, any other to add specifically to what you've said?
Yeah, I think so, because on the first one, where your reputation is taken a battering, I mean, I'm going to refer back to what I've already said, that you've got to understand the detail. You've got to get to the grips with the reality of the situation, not the exaggerations, the spin, the politically motivated feedback that may be coming through. The other bit of reality that you've got to face up to is, what is it that's really what have you done? Have you actually done something wrong? Have you been incompetent? Have you failed at something? Because one's natural inclination, and I don't know you, so I don't know, and this is no statement about you. I don't want to slur your reputation here live on the call. But the point is that if there is something wrong, most people try to cover it up, because they're embarrassed, they don't want to take a hit on their reputation. But that's not going to help you, because if other people see that you've made a mistake and you're trying to dodge it and defend and be defensive, then that's going to dig you deeper in. What you've got to move towards is a position where you have the clarity and can then take decisions on who you need to talk to start to get to grips with what you need to do differently. For instance, which stakeholder has taken the biggest hit from perhaps your mistake or something that went wrong? Go and have a conversation with them and say things like, depending on the nuance of what it is your situation, but okay, I messed up. Hands up, this has gone terribly wrong. I didn't think it, I didn't want it, but it has, and I have to face that reality, Mr. Stakeholder. What I want to do is to work with you so that we make sure that it doesn't happen again, so that we recover this, so that I learn what I need to learn to be able to serve you in the way that you expect. And so actually doing something like that takes courage, but it's something that needs to be done, because you need to hear what these people are saying. You need to hear the reality, not just the vocalization of their frustrations. You need to know what you've got to do differently in order to impress them. So it's almost like going and saying to them, what do you expect of me in the future? Okay, what can we learn from the past? What can we do in the future? What do you want from me? What's the performance criteria? And you might do that with your boss, but do it with your stakeholders to try to get to grips. And you may then say, hey, no, that's not for me. I can't match up to that. But maybe that's a better option than trying to struggle through and trying to hope it will all come true. But if you've been battered, come out fighting in a very positive way to get to the bottom of what's really going on, what you really need to do so that you can actually move forward. So those are my initial thoughts, but Olga, please come through with a follow-up question if you want from David. And referring to building a positive one and making a bigger impact in the organisation, if you've got no reputation, if you're not really visible at the moment, if you don't have much of a profile in your organisation, in a way that's quite good, because you can then start from a blank sheet almost and design what it is you want to become known for. And a lot of the work that we do in the Building Powerful Reputations course is absolutely right up the street for this, because we go into a lot of detail on how to do it. But in a way, to summarise it, you've got to work out what the organisation or the environment is desperately in need of. So what are they demanding? What solutions, what capabilities, what sorts of people are they really after that you might align to? And then you can work out, so what have you got as a base on which to build that will start to fill some of those gaps, so that you are automatically more likely to get noticed. You don't want to get really good at what everybody does. yeah, you need to have a certain level of competence, but if you want to stand out, you've got to be doing something different and something that your environment will take notice of, will desperately need, and then you can actually start to supply. And you will move very, very quickly. Then you can go into much more detail about what exactly that means, what the key processes are that helps you to deliver that reputation, and also the ways of growing your visibility. But it comes, I think it's really, I mean, a lot of people miss this, I think, and it's really important, is reputations are situational. So you've got to understand your context, understand the environment in which you wish to create an impression, and then start to design what it is you're going to do and come up with your strategy. So, I mean, I could talk for, well, in fact, on the course, I talked for 5 hours on how to do all of that. So, you know, with the time permitted today, that's hopefully, we'll get you started at any rate.
And a contextual one. In fact, there's a couple of situational contextual ones to come. Adam is asking tips for ensuring that reputation can be maintained, improved, or enhanced, but actually in the sense of being a contractor.
Mm-hmm.
And he notices that there's always tension between permanent and contract staff, with a tendency for the permanent staff to look to blame contract staff if there are delays or issues. So I also noted issues with both contractors and permanent. So that environment, what thoughts about the contractor working in organisations?
Yeah, I mean, I'll come to the contractor dynamic in a moment, but just to cover off a couple of the tips. I mean, the tip for maintaining it is to keep working on it. And I mean that. And if you're clear about what reputation you want, what reputation you have created, then have a maintenance program in place. So actions that you're taking to continue to do it. And in the course, we go into a lot about building more substance and building on substance and continuing to stay ahead of the game so that you've got the best in class of everything that you've built your reputation on, so that not only are you head and shoulders above the others, but you maintain that distance so they're running to catch up all of the time. So if you've got an ongoing program, and I know you're busy, Adam, I know you've got a lot else on, but if you can be doing something every month to continue to finesse it, to continue to build it, continue to publicize it, so much the better. But if you haven't got it, if you haven't got a program like that in place of regular activities, you might be missing some opportunities, and it might start to wane. Other things will change in the context or in the environment that may start to make you a little bit out of date. You don't want to get, particularly if you're a contractor, you don't want to get out of date. And so keep it going like that. And if you go and subscribe to the Influence blog, there's loads of things on visibility and how to do all of that stuff freely available. So just go and have a good search around. Regarding the contractor basis, I think a lot of the time you've just got to be, it's the same stuff, but there is a legal barrier and a psychological barrier between you and the organisation. And contractors are there to be blamed. They are the change agents. They are expendable. I mean, I know everybody's expendable now, but you know, particularly with contracts just coming to an end and not being renewed, it's an interesting power balance that is going on. But what I find is really important as a contractor is that you do a lot of this building your reputation, you know, sort of continuing to prospect amongst the stakeholder base as well as you are able to. And I know you're not always free, you're not as free as internal people to go networking around the permanent side of the deal or the project that you're on, but do as much as you can to keep those connections warm, to develop those relationships, so that when the tensions do rise and when things are not quite going right, you may be blamed at a local level, but maybe at a more senior level, you can manage some of the downsides, some of the consequences or negative consequences. So make sure and do that. But the other thing I think is, as a contractor, I firmly believe, and not all contractors are bought into this, that you've got to be quite cute about the politics of the organisation and the client organisation. And most contractors, they've got their brief, they've got the spec of what it is they've got to deliver, and they're going to go and deliver that. And they focus all the time on that, rather than the political ramifications, because that's for the permanent people. That's their problem. I'm a contractor because I wanted to keep out of the politics. No, you can't. You can't keep out of the politics. So as a contractor, take a very keen interest on the political ramifications of the work that you are doing and the impact on the people that you're closely connected with. Those that are closest to you, you've got to get really close to and then support and help them. And if you can be adding value to their world, they will be less inclined to blame you when things are going wrong, and actually they're probably less likely to go wrong in any case. So there's a lot there, Adam, but hopefully that'll at least give you some steer on what you can be doing next. Okay, David, is there perhaps one more, and then I've got to move on to the next part.
Yeah, actually, I've clocked up 3 or 4 fairly meaty challenges, which I don't know how many you'd like to deal with in total today. Otherwise,
well, perhaps we can have one more, and then we'll come to the others if we've got time at the end. And if not, we'll collect together all the unanswered questions and points and find some way of responding to those post-webinar.
Okay, good. The next one, which is about living on a small island and building reputation and wanting to swap sectors where it's key. I think you've picked on quite a lot on there, haven't you, with networking and looking for the key stakeholders, and networking being important for Kevin as well. Let me see.
There must be a lot to sort through. Shall we?
There is.
I tell you what, David. Let me influence this quite deftly and help you out a little bit there. I'm gonna move on with the second part, and then when we get to the end of that, perhaps we can have a couple of quite tightly posed questions that we can go through, because we have got quite a lot yet to cover. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem. No, I've got it. That'll do nicely. Cheers.
Okay, so assuming you know where you want to get, or know what you want to do, and you've started to identify who these people are, you've got to be very clear about the relationships that you have with each of these individuals. So the key stakeholders on your rebuild, so you've decided those that matter and those that don't. Those that matter, what sort of relationship have you got? And in one of our courses, we use this little model to start to think about the nature of your relationship, and it is a gradient from being very intimate to very hostile. Now, very intimate means you're sharing openly with people. They're saying what's wrong with you, why you can't do this particular project, or they're quite happy to share everything that's going on because they trust that you will perhaps take it on board, do something with it, and tell them where they're going wrong as well. Also sharing sensitivities and sensitive information. And if somebody shares something that could harm them, if you do something and you abuse their trust, then that's a good position to be in, because when people are willing to share that level of detail and potentially put themselves at risk to give you some information, then that's a good relationship and something that you can really do work wonders with. At the extreme end, the hostility comes when you've really upset them and they're not going to be your friend. So it's almost like adversarial. They're out to get you, and at the extreme they will be working hard in the politics to get you out of the organisation, to remove you from their arena altogether, so that you're no longer the bane of their life. And those sort of people, when you go to try to meet with them, they might shout at you, they might try to kick you out of the office, and it's almost like as it does in a professional world, almost to the extent where they're prepared to take physical action to get you out of the way. But between those two extremes, you've got a lot of difference, and I think it's really important, before you go too far on your strategy to rebuild the reputation with each individual, that you try to chart them somewhere on here, because your strategy, your approach can vary dramatically based on where they are, because you don't want to go sharing how sensitive information with somebody who's really hostile. That's a simple example. Equally, you don't want to go in with a lot of force for somebody that you've got a good relationship with, because it's just totally inappropriate, which is fairly obvious. So for each individual you've got, I would recommend that you sort of try to fix them somewhere in this continuum continuum in this dimension. And really this is about, the level of trust that there is in the relationship, the level of almost warmth that is there. And trust is about predictability, reliability. If you trust somebody, you can predict almost what they're going to say in a certain situation or in a certain set of circumstances. You can predict what they're going to do. Usually it means it's going to be favourable to your cause and what you're trying to achieve. But the other thing about the relationship is the degree of interest that they have in you. And some stakeholders may not care about you. They may not be in the least bit interested. They may think you're a complete waste of time, but you've no value to me, so I'm not even... And if you've got somebody like that, then it's very hard to rebuild a reputation in their mind, because they won't even give you the time. But if there is a connection and they have a vested interest in your effort, in your work and the position that you're in, then they're at least going to be more open to having a dialogue with you and discussing everything that you've done wrong. So think about the level of interest and the level of trust. And part of the clues to how to rebuild the reputation is increasing interest and increasing the level of trust within the relationship. So bear that in mind as you move into the next lot, which is your strategic options. And I've come up with 5, and I think these are really important to go through. And you can almost, I haven't done this yet, but you can almost map them to the different stages or different types of relationship that you have. And the first one is sort of soldiering on, and that's what you're going to do before this webinar. I hope you're not going to do it afterwards, because soldiering on is sort of making the best of it. Things have gone wrong, you've had some negative feedback, you managed to get through the annual review or the contract review, and you're still there, so you're going to just keep trying to do a good job, trying to serve those stakeholders who currently have a bad impression of you. And that's a valid option, and it's something that might be the right one. And consider the other ones first, but it might be expedient for you. It might be about timing as well, because there may be some structural changes on the way, there may be a merger in progress, and a lot of the people that are around you might be about to change, and swapping musical chairs might be about to go on as they restructure of the organisation. In a way, soldiering on for a short term is probably not a bad thing if there is a lot of change going on around you. The other option you've got is stealth mode, which is about not making the lack of a reputation or having a poor reputation a big issue. It's about taking it seriously and taking significant action in a quiet way to start to recover it, which might be picking off individual stakeholders one at a time and really trying to wow them, trying to make that transformation from your poor impression to a good impression based on what the thinking that you've done on the other points, but not making it an overt thing that you're trying to recover your reputation. And say, you can't go to somebody, or you can, but it depends where on the relationship scale you are, and say, hey, I want to recover my reputation with you. And, oh yeah, okay, well, do your best. And that's already starting to put up the fence. So stealth mode is quite good in terms of starting to get going, starting to get greater clarity on the distance that you've got to travel in their minds, so that you can begin to make some progress. So stealth mode at an individual level might be very good. Cards on the table is a little bit more extreme. And this is probably more appropriate when you're moving towards the hostile end, but maybe sort of in the middle ground, so neutral to a little bit suspicious. I think probably would be a really good place to use the cards on the table. It depends on the individual and the quality of the relationship that you've got, the type of relationship you've got with them. But cards on the table is actually saying, hey boss, or hey stakeholder, look, I've really messed up. I didn't want it like that. And I'm really keen to actually get this is the way I see it, and I want to open up a dialogue so that we can work it out, so we can work together in the future and both get an awful lot from this working relationship. So that's what I think. What do you think? And trying to get that overtly out on the table so that you know where you're agreeing, where you're disagreeing, and you can potentially take it on the chin and say, yeah, Yeah, that wasn't my finest moment, was it? Okay, well, look, here's my commitment now to change. And potentially they will then start to open up as well. The trust will be starting to go up if you play this well. And then you can start to get some more insights into what they might do as well, because it's never usually just a one sided thing. So they may say, well, yeah, to be honest, Colin, yeah, I probably wasn't that helpful in that situation. So it gives you an opportunity, again, on an individual basis to start to actually recover. But prepare well for it. If you're going to do the cards on the table, prepare well, maybe consult with a friend before you do it. Think about some of the different options and some of the different routes that the conversation might go, and maybe a bit like going into a negotiation and the way you might negotiate for a new deal, a new contract, or a new part of a project. Think about it in that way. You're negotiating the reputation. You're renegotiating the way you're going to work together. Strategic moves is more about looking not just at the individual level, but looking at the pattern around you, looking at the wider range of stakeholders that you've got there, and thinking about, so if that's the general impression people have got of me, what might I do to overcome the negative drag of that, perhaps by doing something else in an exceptional way that is really, really useful for people. And I think that's a key one to be thinking about, because we do a lot on all of our courses, not just the reputation, about getting into a strategic mindset. This isn't just a one conversation. You've got to have a sequence of activities that you play out to move towards your goal in the medium term. And so this is really taking the collective group, your audience, your community, where you want to rebuild and have a really good reputation. What would make sense? And it might be about getting closer to certain key projects, getting closer to certain key people, and making sure that key people, the really powerful ones that can really help you to move forward, will tell the others they've got it wrong about you and actually do some influencing for you. So thinking about it in a strategic way. And the distraction method, and this is a little bit of a fun one, but there's some serious elements to it, which is almost like, okay, if you've got this bad impression over here, you've made a bad impression, got a bad reputation, or not as an ideal one, what can you do to distract everybody? And it may be that the reason why you've got it is because you weren't cut out for the job. Maybe you were put into a position that was not right for you, that wasn't appropriate for your skill set or your goals or your aspirations. And so instead of trying to recover it, just build new. Just build something fresh that is very much aligned to your capabilities, what you're really good at, what you really enjoy, so that it diminishes the impact of the negative impression. So really sort of pump up the volume on what it is you really want to be known for, and then you can forget about all the other stuff. It ceases to matter if you distract your audience through with something that you can really wow them on, which may need some strategic moves. It may need some careful conversations with different people as you almost reposition yourself within the community where you want to have the impression. So think about those 5, and it depends on the relationship, but in a way that's your menu of different choices, from soldiering on right down to sort of distracting them by completely wowing something else. And believe you me, the work that we put into the course, Building a Powerful Reputation, if you want to do the distraction method, that will really help you to craft something new, something big, something bold, that will really give you some mileage. And certainly the people that are on at the moment, the feedback that we're getting is people are able to move an awful lot quicker. So in terms of taking action, what I want to do is sort of just come through with some ideas, and then we'll fall into some more questions before I finally tell you a little bit more about building a powerful reputation. Is number 1, pivot the situation. What I mean by that is a little bit like the distraction method, is sort of thinking about, okay, well look, that's what it was. That's where I want to get. Now, how can I swing things quickly from one place to another? And it may be about taking a completely different project, but also it may be about changing it in your own mind. Because one of the great things about having a bad reputation is you've got something to work on. And I know that may sound a bit strange, but people who are just okay, just have a good impression but aren't really standing out, at least people are taking notice of you. The notice may be negative, but because they're taking notice, there's more likelihood that you'll be able to do something about it because they'll be listening. If you've got a mediocre reputation and you want to take it to another level, that's a different ballgame, a different thing altogether. It's almost like the spotlight is on you, and now you've got a huge opportunity to completely pivot that and do something completely different and really supplant that poor reputation with something really good. And do it while you're motivated, because I said earlier on, you've got to make a clear decision. Yeah, you're going to get going, going to get on and do this. And while you're motivated, get on with the action. I know you've got lots of other things to do, and of course you can't let them down because you've got to deliver on all of that, otherwise things might just get worse. So make sure you're doing your housekeeping, doing what's essential, but then with the inner motivation to completely transform this, get on with the work, get on with it while you're going for it. Seek mentors and coaches. I think it's really important. I mean, like with, getting an editor and telling your story to somebody else and having them reflect it back to you, I think is really important. Getting a more rounded perspective is difficult as an individual, and the more people you talk to, the more people you get feedback from, the more you'll be able to do. Don't take it personally. Because it probably isn't, to be honest. Yes, you're there in the job doing the work, but if it's not coming right for your stakeholders, it may be as much of an expression of their frustration about not being able to get their goals as them being annoyed with you. So try not to take it personally. It is rarely personal. It can get a bit personal, particularly if there's some real damage being done. But generally, people are frustrated not being able to achieve their objectives. So dampen it down in your own mind. Don't get too close, because if you're too closely connected with it, it makes some of the actions a little bit more difficult. Always strive for clarity. Like what reputation have you got? What do you want? What goals are you seeking? The more clarity. The problem with generalizations is it can morph, it can grow, it can become an insurmountable boundary to you. So the clearer you can get, the easier it will be to see, actually, no, this isn't a problem. I can just do that, and that, and Bob's your uncle. Or okay, this isn't going to work, I'm going to go somewhere else. Because the sooner you make that decision, the sooner you'll be able to start building a reputation somewhere else. And keep coming back to it. Demonstrate that tenacity. If it's important to you, keep working at it. Keep coming back. Keep doing more. Even if your progress is slow to start off with, don't be put off, because every bit that you do that will convert or make it likely that somebody will think the things that you want to think of them is a step in the right direction. So keep noticing the steps and move forward. And the final tip before I ask David in with these other big questions is build real substance. I think the days are very, very quickly disappearing when people can just masquerade as something that they're not. And I think you need to have the tools of the job. You need to have the tools of the trade, the processes that will make you exceptional and be able to deliver on it. Because, it's easy to promise. You've got to actually be able to deliver. And I think the days of being able to, overpromise and under-deliver are pretty much gone. Well, certainly I hope so anyway. And certainly what I'm seeing is indicating that. So always, as we were talking with Adam earlier on, put more into it, build more, stay ahead of the game, and become better than the best in what it is you want to distinguish yourself as. I'm going to stop there. David, some final questions. And I guess we're at the hour now, so we're probably going to go on for a good 10-15 minutes more yet. So we will be issuing a replay. We will be sort of putting this out fairly soon. So if you have got to get off to another meeting and start rebuilding your reputation, I totally understand. But we'll carry on.
Is there anything else you want to close off? Because I'm not sure whether any of the what you might point them at next might address some of these questions.
Okay, yeah, that's a good suggestion.
That, and then if anyone's able to stay, we can address those questions now. Otherwise, pick them up.
Very good point. Very good point, David. Well, this is just a very quick. It's not a hard sell. We've got this course that we have put a lot of time and effort into building, and a lot of people are getting an awful lot out of it. It goes through 6 modules. As I say, there's a huge amount of tutorials, video tutorials, articles and questions, but the 6 modules are taking you through a process of how to build a powerful reputation, how to sort of understand what's going on in your environment, how to define what it is you want to get known for, and in the context of today, recovering from where you are to where you really want to get, and then sort of going through the steps that you need to take to almost assemble the toolkit that will give you the substance and give you the credibility, or extend the substance and credibility that you've already got. And there's a lot of good stuff in there that people are realizing. It's giving people confidence to move forward at a much greater rate, and they are moving forward very, very quickly. It takes a deal of thinking about, but we guide you through all of that with a lot of different exercises. And then in the second part, we talk about the mechanics of power and influence. How are things actually working around you, so that you can tap into the things that will help you to become more powerful. And by powerful, I mean for good or ill, however you choose it. But in the course, we've got a lot of integrity and ethics behind this. We will be showing you how to do this without exploiting and taking advantage of other people. So building a powerful reputation, being a force for good in your organisation is what we'll show you how to do. How to connect with sponsors and advocates and grow that network so that you've got a lot of people shouting on your behalf, and how to up your game tremendously by launching or relaunching your reputation in a desired way with your stakeholders, almost like a political campaign that you can start to roll out in a methodical way, in a process orientated way. Because fundamentally what this is about, this whole course is about coming up with, increasing your visibility, getting recognized for what you're really good at and enjoy doing, building that credibility, and ultimately the confidence and the influence and the control. Because so many people I talk to don't feel in control. They've got their job to do, they're doing their best to do it, but so many things are happening around them that they can't influence. Nobody's even listening to them, so they're being ignored, or taken for granted, and that doesn't feel good for people. And a lot of people have, which is one of the reasons why we brought this on. So you can come on this course, and as I say, there's an awful lot here, and we're doing it up until Sunday for just $200. So if you follow the link below, GawtryInfluence.com/reputation, you'll get there. And seriously, it's a one-off payment. Over 5 hours worth of training is there available to you, and hopefully this webinar has given you a little bit of a feel for the way we do things and some of the materials that we've got behind it. But it would be great to see you there, and it would be great to help you to get noticed, recognized, and really powering forward in your career. And in the context of today, rebuilding, recovering, relaunching your reputation. So thank you for the suggestion, David. That's all I'm going to say on that. It's your choice. Go for it if you feel it's going to be right for you. Otherwise, David, have we got some questions?
There's one a bit of a chain of questions that builds from someone I'll call F for reasons is F is not sure what his reputation is, and so how to find out was the question. And he finds it gets avoided by some colleagues, but not sure why. There's a deafening silence. And then hopes that there's no one from his organisation here on the same call, which actually there isn't, F, but I'll keep you anonymous. Just to follow on from that, so really it's maybe embodied in what's been said already, but to put some context on it, he's getting rejections in his own faculty, whether applying for roles or offering to take on different commitments. So sometimes feeling almost paranoid. Are they really out to get me, or is it just in my head?
Yeah.
Which I said, it came in a little late, so I said you'd already referred to that. But yet, the other side of the coin is feedback from students and everyone else and colleagues is generally positive. So here's a person that's very confused with this. So you can see, how do we actually get a grip on what our reputation actually is?
Yeah, and that's it's a really important one, because there's a whole mixed bag of things in that, David, and I'm sure you know well enough to know that there's a lot I could say on any one of those points. But in terms of immediate guidance, what I would suggest is that one of the things you need to try to establish is higher levels of trust with the people that you're talking to, because people might avoid you for any number of reasons. The problem is you don't know why. and you don't know why, because they are not prepared to tell you, and that's probably because they don't trust you, or they don't like the reaction that would come from it. So my suspicion would be, and I could be completely wrong here, is that you may have a checkered impression around the organisation, maybe with different communities, and there may be a good reason why. And I suspect you probably have got an inkling as to why, based on the history. And when we're doing the politics course, we do a lot of, so what's the background, what's the history? This is mastering the politics. But I think, my suggestion would be try to segment your arena into different areas, different key groupings or different key communities, as we were talking about at the beginning of this, and try to treat each one individually. Try to get to know some of the key people within each of those communities well enough, and get the trust in the position where you can ask them, really, can you be honest with me? Things don't seem quite right here. What suggestions have you got for me going forward? Don't ask, well, what's my reputation or what impression am I creating? Ask for their ideas in an open way as to what they can do, what you could do differently to improve the service. I mean, you don't even need to acknowledge that something's wrong. You can just say to them, hey, look, I want to get better. I want to deliver more. I want to deliver better for the students or for the faculties or whatever it is you're doing, and actually posit in it. Then they're going to be less concerned that you might be upset with the feedback, and then they'll probably say things in disguise a little bit, but you will be able to use some sort of careful thinking to deduce, okay, so what they're really saying is this. So to get more hints and to get more things coming up. But if you treat each community, each group separately, I think that you'll be able to move forward a lot quicker in trying to unpick what's going on. A lot does come back to, though, the questions, and you may have missed this, who do you want to create a good reputation with that suits your goals? And it's not the whole faculty, the whole institution is rarely the case, but depending on what you want to do, you've got to be very clear on your target, and then you can cut down a lot of the work, because some people's voices may not matter. So that would be my response there to F.
That's great. Thank you. I think what you said also perhaps addresses Afsoon's question, who's interested to know how to be more tactful and diplomatic with bosses. He doesn't seem to have a problem with clients. They call to give appreciation and not only with the results but with the dedication. So the question is, so what can be a cause of some of the difference in perception between clients and bosses, or better said, the different perception between the colleagues inside my company and the clients outside of the company? So there's a perception thing going on here, internal versus external.
Yeah, but there's also, I mean, you have to be honest with yourself here. My bet would be you react differently to people inside to outside. You're probably more client focused and doing a good job for the client and beating up the organisation to deliver. I mean, I say that metaphorically, of course, but sometimes internally, because people are internal and they're colleagues, we might treat them more roughly, shall I say. And you mentioned tact and diplomacy. You may not have time, and we do work with quite a number of organisations with account managers, and where account managers are going and doing deals and what have you, and their big influencing problem is not actually with the clients, it's with the internal organisation to get it to swing behind the deal they've just done. Because they can be quite creative, some account managers, in terms of promises, and then to get the systems changed to be able to honour that promise is sometimes a little bit difficult. And the other thing is, internally, people don't have to respond in the same way that a client would respond. So there's a different sort of power relationship, and within the course we've got quite a lot where we talk about the mechanics of power and influence and how it works. And my guess would be there is something in the power sources of the people inside compared to outside, and the way you are relating to them, that is out of kilter, that is not quite where you need it to be. And I would suggest you look into that side of things. Look at what makes these people internally powerful, what makes you powerful, and how you can start to adjust things to get things where you need them to be. if in fact you need the cooperation and appreciation of people inside, because you don't necessarily need that if your power with the clients is strong enough that you don't need to, you can demand what you need to get done. Depends where your career aspiration. If you want to lead the company, then you have got to have them on side internally. So it depends really where you want to go. So that would be my suggestion. Look very closely at the mechanics of power and influence around those two dynamics.
Yeah, I think there's something, because it is the relationship with the bosses in the organisation, seeing eye to eye. So there's that piece of influencing your boss, which I think there's lots of writing on the website to cover that off. Yeah, and often it is the news we bring, perhaps as well, recognising that how we are with them will give us the reaction that we get. Thinking about the two different, different types of stakeholders. Adam, as a political bias, you've touched on the politics already, but suffered from feedback that's harmed his reputation, which is politically motivated and been spun or is false. So how does one manage recover from that quickly without directly attacking the person who started maligning the reputation?
They've got a vested interest in your downfall. And at the end of the day, they would benefit from you not being there. Your job is to very quickly make sure that they realise how important you are to their future, how much you will be able to help them in the future, and how much you can drive forward their agenda rather than threaten it. If you can't do that, then you're not going to actually get them on side. Sorry to be brutal about it, but that's the long and the short of it. They are in a position where they are moving politically to put you out of action, or to limit your scope, limit your power, limit your influence to suit their purpose. And if you don't know what that purpose is, you don't know what to do for the best. Defending yourself is probably not the answer. And so it's a bit like the martial artist. You've got to get beneath the surface, really figure out where they're driving, which is hard if you haven't got a high level of trust, but use your network, use other people to try and deduce what it is going on. Then maybe have some carefully constructed conversations or dialogues with them to try and understand where you're going wrong. Say, look, okay, I must be getting something wrong here because you seem to be sort of really, trying to put me out of action, for want of a better word, but I think I can help you an awful lot more than you realise, but we need to get through this first. So can we have an open conversation about what I need to do differently? And taking it on the chin, taking it, taking it on your shoulders, they won't expect that. That will be a bit of a surprise for them, and potentially it could launch you into a new phase of your relationship with them. Difficult stuff, hard stuff, but potentially well worth doing. But if you can't help them, then they're going to help you out of the door. Sorry, Adam.
Yeah, bit of asking around to do there, I think. Yeah, last one, if we're okay with that, unless anyone else has any challenges. Adam, thanks you for that answer. Great answer, thanks. Go for what's in it for them. Indeed, splendid. Great stuff, Adam. Kevin has raised 2 points. Sounds as though you've been through the mill, Kevin. The first point he raised was how to recover from redundancies. If there's reputational damage, that's the thing I would question on that, I think. The first is surviving mergers. So it sounds as though you've been on a journey, Kevin, if there's been a merger and you've ended up exiting. Colin, thoughts for anyone in this situation?
The first one is try to do whatever you can to move through the emotional cycle. Because there is an emotional cycle. It's almost like grieving, and you can look this up on the internet. I forget what they call it. David may recall it, but firstly you're just angry and how unfair it is, and it shouldn't be happening to me, and ultimately you get very depressed about it, and it's the world is sort of all wrong, and then eventually you start to begin to look around and think, okay, and then you're in the recovery phase, and you can then start to take some positive action. But until you get through the first couple of stages and you can speed those those things up, the recovery is going to be quite difficult. So recognize that that is the way human beings work, Kevin. The other thing is that, it depends again on your audience and who you want to have a good reputation for. But what goes on in mergers is fascinating, and you've got to be very careful. And nobody tells you how to behave, well, apart from us, how to do these things. Because one of my somebody who's on Breakthrough Influence at the moment is going through this very process where two huge, great big, I'm not going to name them, but two huge, great big global organizations are coming together. One has been acquired by the other, and he's in the acquired company. And what we're working through, and it's taking some quite intensive coaching to sort of position, he is looking at very openly at what the opportunities are in the new merged organization. So he has more quickly, because of the help and support, he has gone through this process of coming to terms with what is happening and has decided, okay, I'm going to make the best out of this. Because most people get stuck in the culture and stuck in the legacy of their old organization, and that's gone. It's gone forever, and it isn't going to come back, because particularly on an acquisition side, the acquirer will probably be the dominant culture in the new entity. So you've got to shift your values, you've got to shift the way you think and the way you operate towards the acquiring company as quickly as you possibly can, or at least put them on notice that you've recognized all of this and are up for it and are looking for the exciting opportunities that lay ahead. Most people, most of your colleagues will probably be thinking, this isn't what I want, this isn't what I signed up for, and now they're making me reapply for my job. And that's a bad position to make a good impression in a new with a new set of stakeholders and a new boss. So think very carefully about how the culture is different. And a good tip, and this is something that I took this guy in South America through, very recently, is looking at what is the difference between the old and the new, particularly in cultural terms, what implications that has on behaviours, but also looking and elevating up into the strategic level. And this guy is moving forward very, very fast. He is one of the only people from the acquired company who is now moving into the new entity because of some of the steps that he's taken. But he's looked at the organisation. He's looked at what he would do if he was reorganizing their entity or their division down in Latin America, and he is sort of moving that one forward. But he has thought ahead of the conversations that he has with people. So the new bosses that are coming in, they're not only getting to know him, they're starting to realize that he's been thinking ahead, being ahead of the game. And actually, so not only is this guy saying the right things, but he's got the right ideas as well. And here's the tangible proof. We need to look after this guy. And the proof is in the eating, and he has now been offered a new position in the new organisation, which is testament to the vigour that he put into embracing the change, not being sort of caught in the past, I suppose, which is a tough thing to do. But remember that emotional process that you will go through. But if you want to reach out to me, Kevin, reach out, and if you want, we can have a bit more of a dialogue on it. As David is saying, if you've been through the mill a bit. Okay, so I'll close there then, shall I?
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you for that, David. It will be interesting to dive into the logs as well, because I wouldn't mind betting there's a couple of questions that even with your eminent skill has maybe gone past. But we'll probably do a little bit of a extra bit when we finally produce this in a couple of days' time. But I want to say thank you to those of you that are still here, and reiterate what I was saying just a moment ago, that building a powerful reputation is a choice. It takes some planning and it takes some help and support, and this is what the course is there to do, and we're there to help you as well. Now, I've said it's $200, that's US dollars, but that price is going up on Sunday, at the end of play on Sunday UK time, to align more appropriately with the other courses that we've got in our portfolio at the moment. But the thing is, if you want this, if you think that this will help you in your recovery situation, help you to build a good reputation so that that you can get what you want out of your working life, sign up soon. And what we will also do is we will give you email support. So if you've got any questions, if you're not quite sure what to do, if you've got any misunderstandings about the material or the exercises, you've got us on the other end of the email, basically. And you don't have to do it immediately. You can take your time, take a year over it if you want, but I hope you'll do it within the next 3 months and get the course through. There's a lot there, but it is already proving to be extremely useful in helping people to move forward their careers and building a powerful reputation. So I'm going to stop there. Thank you very much for your time and your challenging questions, and look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you very much.